Welcome to the Frederick Family Acre. My name's Katrina.
And my name's George.
And today's video is going to be slightly different than normal. We're going to sit down together and have a chat about starting a new garden. We spend a lot of time influencing our friends to start new gardens, and we actually have several on the hook that we are going to be helping out this year, getting some things going. We're very excited about it, and we thought it was such an important topic that we would sit down with you guys and talk about starting a new garden and some of the things that we consider to be essential before diving in head first.
So the first thing that we want to touch on, which I consider to be one of the most important things that people don't seem to realize, the time is right now. It is never too late. And if you're thinking, man, I wish I would have done this last year or 2 years ago, don't. Start now, and 2 years from now, you'll think, man, I'm glad I did that. It is important to remember that life is constantly changing and evolving around us. The world is constantly changing and evolving around us, and it may seem like right now it's imperative that you get this done. Maybe it is. Go ahead and start. 2 years from now, the world could be in a very different place, and it may seem less important, but you should still do it now.
And the worst case is you're going to have a lot of really good food. So growing a garden is never a bad thing, because no matter why you start it, you're just going to be blessed with so much abundance for you, your family, and your friends. Now, the other element of it not really being too late is it's not too late in the year. We're sitting here on a very beautiful and breezy day in June. It is Memorial Day today, and this is when a lot of people, last frost dates are finally gone. Things are getting planted out. People are putting out their big old starts, and you might see this and think, dang it, like I have no time now. I can't start from seed. Everything's on sale. I don't have time to get things together. And that just is not the case. You still have plenty of time. The way to research that is you're just gonna hop online and Google search when is the first frost date for your zip code, the closest big city. Both of those will work, and you'll get the information for when your first frost date is. And once you have that information, it will inform what you could plant now, whether it would be to go buy starts from the garden center or a big box store, or even still start from seed, because right now there's still a lot of stuff you could start from seed. Believe it or not, probably even including longer things like tomatoes. If you pick a variety that has a shorter number of days to harvest, like a determinate variety. But what you'll do is on almost every seed packet, it will tell you your days to harvest. So if you have over 100 days to harvest, you could start anything that has that much time. And there's quicker things that you can harvest within a month, within 60 days. So just figure out when that first frost date is, and then figure out what crops you could grow based on that information.
After you've done your research and you figure out how much time you have, which you do still have time, remember, just start small. Start with something that's attainable for you. Don't overdo it. Don't go out and plant, well, maybe go out and plant 100 plants, but think reasonably with yourself. Grab a packet of seeds and start a few plants, just enough to get yourself excited but not overwhelmed. So that could be 5 plants, that could be 500 plants. You be the judge. Just remember to start with an attainable amount of garden space.
And once you start small, it's really easy to build and add on. And once you're hooked on gardening, you're going to quickly learn that your garden will never be big enough. Yeah. When you're selecting varieties to go in whatever amount of space you've determined is doable for you, make sure you're picking things that you want to eat, that you already know you love to eat. This is not the time to experiment and go crazy. You can a little if you want to pick one new thing, But in our experience, it's just best that 95 to 98% of what you're growing should be things that you know that you and your family already really love to eat, because that means you're not going to really end up wasting anything.
You're going to be excited about this food coming out of the ground or coming out of wherever you're growing it. If you want to eat it, you're going to want to grow it, and you're going to want to take care of it so you can eat it.
In addition to planting the food that you are going to want to eat, that's going to make you excited, that you are just going to be jonesing to get your hands on, make sure that when you are planting this space, that you make it beautiful. Add a few flowers. Even if you're in grow bags, you can put a tomato plant and a flower in there. You could put a pepper plant and a flower. You could put a few lettuces and a couple flowers and maybe an herb or something like that. Make it a very beautiful and inviting space. Get a chair, put it in there. We move chairs all around our garden. It's important that where you're growing food is somewhere that you want to be. And that way, when you want to be there, you're going to see what's going on. You're going to be aware of if your plants need water, if there's a caterpillar you need to pick off, if you see powdery mildew or something. It's much easier to spot a problem when you're in your garden often, and the best way to be in your garden often is for it to be a beautiful, relaxing, inviting place.
The next thing that makes it easy to take care of is where you put it. So proximity. It's very, very, very important. You want to make it easy and accessible and something that you see frequently. So you want to be out in that beautiful space that you created. For us, our main garden with our raised beds is 8 steps away from our back door. We can open the slider, walk 8 steps, and we're right inside of our garden. We can pull our shades out and look right out into our garden where we're growing our food. The proximity makes it very easy for you to get out to where you want to be and to take care of your food and grow it that much easier.
It also makes it a lot easier if you're in the middle of cooking dinner and you remember, hey, I have this thing in the garden. I'm going to quick go grab it and bring it back and throw it into whatever meal you're preparing. So having it close like that just has an innumerable amount of benefits. Now, the next thing to consider when choosing proximity is how many daylight hours a location gets. Based on where you are in relation to the hemisphere will inform you if you want your garden to be more on the north side or the south side of your property. And again, this is something that another quick Google search will help you with. I think there's actually even a website that if you put in your address, you can watch the sun go over your property. I'll put that link down below. I'm actually 100% sure there is one because we looked at it when we were trying to pick where to put our garden. So for us, the best place is on the south side of our house, which is where it is. Our garden is south facing and it gets full sun. And after you look at this app, another thing you're going to want to do is once you think you have the spot for your garden, you're going to, on a weekend, when you're home, want to make sure you're going outside about every hour or at least 4 or 5 times in one day to see how much sun that area really gets. Is there a tree that might cast shadows at a different time of day? If it's winter, is that tree going to have leaves and give you too much shade in the summer? So really take time to make sure that your garden space is going to have 6 to 8 daylight hours, but honestly, the more the better. The only exception is if you live somewhere super hot, it might actually be a good choice to pick a place where you might get some afternoon shade to protect your crops during the hottest part of the day.
And the last thing to remember in relation to proximity is water. Do you have water accessible in this area, easily accessible to be able to take care of your plants? You want to make sure you have either a spout on the side of your house close to, or maybe an area out in your yard where you have sprinklers that you could already tap into and put a valve there to be able to run a hose or drip or whatever else it is that you're going to need for your plants.
And if that's not there, you're really going to want to get it in before you get your garden set up.
Yeah.
We just fixed some irrigation and added irrigation to our area, and our water wasn't even far away. We had a long hose, but it's already so much better. So water really such a big factor.
And you want to be able to test these things before you actually put your plants in. That way you're not making up for things that you need while trying to make sure that you can keep these things alive.
After you have considered all the things before this comes one of the most fun parts, and that is deciding what kind of garden you want to put in. And there are so many different ways that you can grow food that make it possible for anyone, anywhere, no matter where you live. From the tiniest apartment to sprawling acreage, there is absolutely a system and a method that's gonna work for you to grow food.
Your imagination truly is your limit.
The first one and the most obvious is you could do an in-ground garden. There are sometimes trouble with this based on your soil health or type of soil and different things like that. But if you are somewhere that has great soil, an in-ground garden is going to be the most affordable, quickest way to get going.
And if you are somewhere that doesn't have great soil health, you can look into systems like no-till, where you can nourish your soil and get it to a place where in the future it absolutely will be a perfect place for you to grow plants.
If you are interested in a no-dig, no-till method, go ahead and look up Charles Dowding. If you haven't heard of him, he basically invented this style of gardening and has lots of great information about how to be successful in doing that.
Now, the second style of soil growing would be something like a raised bed. This would be really, again, anything you can imagine. It's a container that sits above the ground that you put your soil in and you grow plants in it. So the majority of what you probably are thinking is a large wooden bed or a metal bed that sits anywhere from 8 to 2 feet above the level of the ground, and you plant in it. This is great because you're able to control your soil. You can work water into a raised bed very easily through drip or through drenching systems, and you have a ton of control over the way that you grow your plants in soil with a raised bed system.
Now, after raised bed gardening, there is container gardening, and this is growing your food in pots or grow bags. There are even some cool balcony containers you can get, or some systems I've seen with DIY where you can make a little planter on the edge of your balcony or your deck. Lots of options for that, and that is a great thing if you are renting somewhere and might not be able to put in a raised bed, or the landlord might not want you to dig up the grass. Container gardening is a wonderful option because it is not really as permanent as the first two suggestions that we had.
Yep. And moving on from containers, you would be moving into things like growing systems. These are things like towers, vertical growing systems that you can put soil in, put your plants in, and you can fit anywhere from 5 to 50 or more plants in these systems in a space about 2 to 3 feet.
2 to 3 square feet.
Yeah, very
small
very
footprint.
small, and you can grow tons of food in these systems. These are things like the Garden Tower project,
Green stock.
green stalks.
Garden Tower by Juice Plus. The dollar store had some stackable planters.
Yep, we did a couple reviews on some in the past. If you're interested, you can go check those out, and we'll be doing some more content around vertical growing in the future. Outside of that, Katrina mentioned the Tower Garden by Juice Plus. That is a aeroponic system, or part of hydroponics. And this is a whole nother area that you can dive down to that can save you space and save you water, which is very important in a lot of places right now. Hydroponics is a way to save a vast amount of water, up to 70% of what you would use in something like a traditional soil bed, because you're able to constantly recuperate that back into the system. And those can be done outdoors, indoors, indoors and outdoors. And if you want to get really crazy with it, you can do aquaponics and add fish to it as well for additional protein and nutrient for your plants.
The last option when picking what style of garden is if you really think you don't have space, or you would like to utilize more space than you have, see if there is a community garden near you where you can sometimes get a space for free or for a small amount for the gardening season. And this is another great way to be able to start gardening.
A lot of times with a community garden, if they do charge something, it can be in labor and helping out with the garden as a whole with things like weeding, replanting, remulching, and things like that. So it may not even be a monetary charge. It could be something like labor, which is free, really. It is your time, but it is free, and it's a great resource.
Speaking of resources, another really important thing is that you source good soil if you are doing, or compost. If you are doing a raised bed or gardening in the ground, you are going to need some kind of compost for organic matter or to bring in good soil. And if you bring in bad dirt, you can still grow things, but not as well. Our first year, the soil we got was not excellent, and we still had a lot of success.
Yeah.
But since then, after getting really good compost and other things in there, it has gotten 100 times better. Now, it can be hard to know what good soil is if you are not an experienced gardener. So our advice to you is find a friend who gardens or go to your local gardening center, go to your community garden if there is one, even if you're going to garden at home, and you will guaranteed be able to find someone that can help point you in the right direction of where you can get good quality soil. I will put a warning out there right now at the time of recording this in May of 2022. There has seemed to have been a little bit of problem with some bags of potted mix. If you do go that route, you may want to be sure to add some amendments and things, especially if you're starting seeds. Just maybe even, we don't normally buy a seed starting mix, but we became aware that a lot of people were having problems starting their seeds in potting mix this year. So just be on the lookout for that. It doesn't seem to actually have to do with any one specific brand. So just make sure you're on the lookout and keep a close eye in your space that you want to be to make sure that your plants are growing properly.
Watch your plants. They really will tell you if they're happy or not. Now, happy plants, compost. Let's talk about compost. You should be doing compost. This is the best way to recoup a lot of your money, not only in your kitchen, but also in your garden and your yard. And in recouping that money, you're also providing the best nutrition possible for your plants and your garden. There are very simple and very small ways to get composting. A lot of people think that you need these massive piles or you need these massive bays in order to start composting and getting a lot of good compost, and that's just not true. One of our favorite methods, vermicomposting or composting with worms, can be done inside of your garden beds or inside of your raised beds. Or you can even put them in aquaponics, believe it or not, with fish systems. They can be done as small or as large as you want, and it's a very fast turnover to get that compost out of a worm system.
And if you're interested in checking out more about vermicompost, we actually just did a vlog all about vermicomposting, the benefits, and in that vlog there's a little tutorial for how to do one of the embed systems that George was just talking about. We are actually going to be having another vlog coming out in the next few weeks about how to build a DIY bin system that is outsized your raised bed if you want something bigger. And then we also are going to be doing a third one about building a much larger vermicompost system because we are working on expanding our garden and we need a lot more compost. So while we already have like a medium-sized, pretty good system we get a lot out of, we need something bigger, and we're going to share that with you guys. The other great thing about compost is it's not only feeding your plants. Having good compost is really about feeding your soil. And that is why it is such a game changer to be using compost in your garden to add nutrient versus other fertilizers that are either liquid or granular, because when you're putting that in, it's not feeding the soil. Yes, your plants will uptake it and they will be healthy and they will do excellent, but over time, that's not going back into the soil. That's not giving your soil life. And as that breaks down, adding the nutrients in those other forms won't be as good. So make sure you compost, supplement with granular and liquid nutrients if you have to, but absolutely be sure that you have a way to get compost.
There are micro ecosystems inside of our soil that rely on that organic matter being in the ground. Like Katrina said, a granular or liquid nutrient will not feed those micro ecosystems. Just to sum this up, remember, it is never too late to start, but start small and attainable and grow what you want to eat.
Make your space really beautiful, somewhere you want to be. Be very judicious in selecting your location by making sure it's close to your house, has plenty of daylight hours, and lots of water available. After these things have been considered, you will need to select what kind of garden you are going to put in and the things you will need to accomplish that task.
Once that's completed, if you need it, remember to plan your soil. Figure out what you need, where to get it, and go ahead and get started. And last but not least, remember to start a compost system. We really want to thank you guys for coming along with this video. We really do find it important for people to start new gardens if you haven't already. This really is a new way of experiencing life, to grow your own food and be able to contribute to sustaining yourself and your family.
If you know someone that you think would really be interested or is talking about starting a new garden, we would really appreciate it if you shared this video with them. If you are thinking about starting a new garden, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you are notified every time we post new content. We are going to be building a small space garden start to finish so that you can see exactly how to do it and how simple it is. And one last little shameless plug is we did just start a podcast, and it is called Growing to Freedom. And the first season we're doing is all about laying the foundation for having a more self-reliant life and breaking free of the systems that we live in, being less reliant on those systems and more able to take care of ourselves, and really encouraging people to become producers rather than being stuck on a never-ending loop of consumerism. Thanks again for hanging out with us. We really know your time is valuable, and it means a lot to us that you choose to spend it here.
And we will see you back here soon.
The things we do.
Good?
I think. Are you smiling?
Yeah?
Say yes.
Yes. All right. Cool. We're good.
That's not where we wanted it. Whoopsie.
That'll be a good outtake there.